Welcome to another episode of the Interfaiths podcast. I'm your host, Professor Iqbal Akhtar here at FIU, and we're very honored today to have Jenny Pearson to talk to us. She's from the Jewish Federation here in Miami, and we're going to kind of go a little bit into her background, her experience, and the work that she's doing for Federation. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Talk to us a little bit about your life. Who are you?
Wow. So professionally,
Life, like start off from, who are you personally? And then we can get into professionally. Talk a little bit maybe about your childhood. Like,
okay.
What are some of the things that shaped who you are as a person?
Okay. So I grew up in New York, but I spent part of every year here in Florida. My family had a lot of family here, and so we would be here for like every summer and every school break and everything. And my father eventually had his part of his company here and everything. So Florida is a big part of my life, even though I grew up in New York City. But I grew up with parents who were very active in their community. They both were community leaders in different ways, either as part of boards or presidents of organizations, from everything from the neighborhood association to the local hospital to a Jewish school for kids with special needs. My dad was a big part of that growing up, and our synagogue. And so being Jewish was a big part of my childhood. We were a observant reform home. Okay. So what that means is, even though my mother grew up traditional and my father grew up in the sort of worker circle, which is the sort of socialist kind of like Eastern European Jewishness, he became more actively, religiously active when he met my mom and when he married my mom. And so we celebrated every holiday. We marked Shabbat. We were very Jewish, actually, in a neighborhood that was not Jewish in Brooklyn. It's hard to imagine that, like, when you think of Brooklyn, you think of like Jewish, but we lived in a part of Brooklyn that was like people from the Mayflower.
Okay.
So,
wow.
So it was really weird. Yeah. I always was kind of like feeling like an outcast as a Jew, not as anything else, not intellectually, not socially so much, but, I definitely felt like my family was different. Like there were big cultural differences that I felt. And then, of course, in Florida, we were on the Gulf Coast, which is also less Jewish than this coast. And so it also was sort of like being an outcast to be Jewish. So as I grew up, I did decide that I was more interested in making a life in Florida than New York City. I grew up active in the arts. I went into the arts professionally as an adult, and I thought it would be a more interesting challenge to be in Florida, and which was at the time a growing cultural community. I mean, it's still growing, but it wasn't like New York City, which is like you would really be a really small fish in a really, really big sea in terms of the arts. And so I thought it'd be a much more interesting challenge to be in a place where culture is sort of less present and less understood. And so I worked in the arts from the beginning of my career. And I was working in the arts in a field that centers on community engaged practice. Okay. So artists and organizations that do arts for social change. So very early on, I was introduced to the values of community-based work and community responsive work and community values and social change values, and social justice values. So I've done that in my career at all different kinds of organizations, from very small grassroots organizations to very large major institutions like the Florida Philharmonic, which doesn't exist anymore, and the Adrienne Arsht Center, where I was the director of community engagement. So my work sort of became, because there was so much of it was about building that bridge between the arts and community, I focused a lot on community engagement. There was about 10 or 15 years that I was specifically focused on the community that I was focused on in my community engagement was the Jewish community. So I was really interested in arts programs and I produced arts programs that were about pushing the edges and redefining or helping people get beyond stereotypes about what Jewish culture is, and also breaking the boundaries of what Jewish culture is.
Can you give us an example?
So yes. So one of the things I did was I took a traditional Passover Seder and I worked with a group of artists and I assigned them all, well, they chose, self-selected different parts of the Seder that they felt a particular connection to, and they interpreted that part of the Seder through their artistic practice, whether they were performing artists or visual artists. So we had poetry, we had film, we had sculpture, we had painting, all that each piece represented a different part of the Passover Seder. Should I explain Passover Seder a little bit more?
Probably, yeah.
So a Passover Seder Seder means order in Hebrew. And a Passover Seder is the home service that we have during Passover, which is an important Jewish holiday in the spring. That's around when Easter is. And it reminds us of the story of Exodus. It's all about the story of Exodus. And it has a prayer book called the Haggadah that takes you through the story and takes you through remembering that we were slaves in Egypt. And that is really important to the work that I do now. So a really, really significant value is remembering always that we were slaves in Egypt, and therefore and we were the strangers. And so it's always really important that we take care of anyone who is enslaved, anyone who is oppressed, anyone who is othered or marginalized. That's a really, really important Jewish value. And as is welcoming the stranger. So it's very much about building bridges. Sure. It's very much about that. So that's what a Passover Seder is. It has all these different parts. It has something called a Seder plate, which has different symbols. So one symbol reflects our tears. One symbol reflects the mortar that we used between bricks when we were slaves and we had to build buildings for the Pharaoh. So we took the Seder plate. People took things on the Seder plate, but they also took different prayer sections. Like, for example, there's the 4 questions, which is when the youngest person at the table asks, and Passover Seders happen around a table. I should have said that. And in the 4 questions, the youngest person asks all of these questions. Most significantly, why is this night different from all other nights? Which always reminds us in everything we do to really look at the uniqueness of every situation and what we're trying to remember by it, that we are keeping it unique and holy. And there's another part. So somebody did the 4 questions as their theme. And there's a lot of themes of 4. There's 4 cups of wine traditionally. And there's 4 children, which traditionally is 4 sons. But having grown up in a progressive Jewish movement, we're egalitarian. So we do it as children. And so one doesn't know how to ask and one doesn't know how to, get themselves out of a situation, and it's really interesting to look at all of these different ways of being human, and we can find ourselves in all four situations. My husband did a reinterpretation of it that we use in Arsht Center, which is four intelligences.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we focus on that. So that was an example of an art project where artists took a Jewish tradition and turned it into their artistic practice. Right. So it was extremely, obviously very contemporary because it was live living art that was made in the moment. And I liked to think of the Jewish culture that I produced as being beyond Fiddler on the Roof. I always used to say it's beyond Fiddler on the Roof, because so often when people think about what is Jewish culture, they think of Fiddler on the Roof. And, being Jewish is so much more than Fiddler on the Roof. One of the main things is that Fiddler on the Roof talks about one community of Jews in a certain part of the world. And in fact, the Jewish diaspora has taken us all over the world. And there's Jews in every continent and almost every country, and people practice in so many different ways, and there's so many different traditions and foods and different kinds of music, which was another thing that I did, is I created a music festival called the Guava Rugelach music festival. Okay. So Rugelach is a
pastry,
a little pastry that that's common in Eastern European Jewish communities. And I walked into a store and a kosher market here in Miami, and I saw a package that said Guava Rugelach, and I was like, only in Miami. Right. Like, only in Miami would they take a tropical fruit and make an Eastern European pastry out of it. And that was when I got the idea for the name of the festival, but I was already working on this unnamed music festival that was about bringing together all the different kinds of music that comes from all the different kinds of Jewish communities that exist in Miami. Wow. So that festival happened about 3 or 4 times. Okay. And that was really fun. And then we also had like a, I forgot what we called it, Guava Jam. And it was the different cultures of music coming together. Oh, wow. Okay. And playing a song together, but with their own musical traditions. Wow. So like all the artists jammed together on the stage. It was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Wow. I mean, it's really kind of pushing the boundaries of like of culture, and I think Miami is good in that sense, is that you actually have such a remarkable combination of people, and it's a massive. It's a big community. Yeah. And like you said, they're representative from all across the Jewish diaspora here.
All across the Jewish diaspora, and then it ends up having its own Miami flavor. Right, exactly. Which is informed by all of these other cultures.
Right, exactly.
So that's very cool.
That's interesting.
So that gives you an idea that that I was interested in examining the Jewish community. And over the years, showing the world that the Jewish community is diverse and can be so many other things, and forming partnerships with other communities, which is what I've done in the arts through different situations where either the work, that was when I was doing specifically Jewish work, but I also spent 2 years actually examining Muslim culture and celebrating Muslim culture through the arts at an arts organization I was with. And so I learned a lot about Muslim culture during that time. One of the things I learned was I learned how accessible it was to me because of my own traditions.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So it was really interesting to understand culturally rooted work based on, or culturally rooted ideas based on text, based on religious traditions, based on, exactly. So that was really cool. And I also spent some time, we were doing a few seasons looking at environmental work. And so we were forming partnerships with environmental organizations, and learned a lot about that then. So that's when I went to be director of community engagement, and I was really interested in. I was producing all the community programs at the Arsht Center. So the free programs, the Free Gospel Sundays, Family Fest, which was a program for young families, and forming relationships with all these different kinds of community groups. And then October 7th happened, and I felt this this instinct to work Jewishly again.
Okay.
And so I was very, very lucky to find my current job, which is community relations manager for the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. So my work is about bringing all of those partnerships that I started forming around the community, plus forming new ones, and really building bridges between the Jewish community and other communities. They're not only faith-based; they're also culturally and spiritual. Not spiritual. They're culturally and socially based. It's great because I get to work with so many of the same people and the same communities. But it's really about like, how do Jews and Muslims live together, work together, celebrate together, find our similarities, and not just talk about our differences. I just launched a program that I'm really, really excited about. Called Rekindle Miami. It is a program that is about Black Jewish relations. And it is for people in their 20s and 30s. It's a cohort. We had our first meeting this past Sunday. I guess almost a week ago. And
how's it going?
It was great. It was like great to have everybody in the room. People were really, it's facilitated, and there are guidelines so that, it's a safe space where everything that happens there stays there. We just had the first meeting where we sort of like talked about ourselves and talked about our identities and talked about assumptions and stereotypes that people make about us just based on how we look or whatever. But we're going to do some cool things like we're going to be, not so cool, but looking at, it's cool, but not cool, to learn about antisemitism and racism and white supremacy. So I love the idea of Jews and people from the Black community being in a room together and together hearing about racism and being able to talk about it, and together being able to talk about antisemitism, and together being able to talk about white supremacy, which affects both of us. I really love that it's a space for that dialogue to happen. And I hope that it's 6 months long, and I hope that afterwards people remain friends and remain in each other's lives and remain doing things together. Absolutely. That would be a real sign of success.
That's amazing.
It happens that way.
You've had like a very interesting professional journey, and what do you think is one of the what are some of the challenges that you are going through now working with Federation? You talked a little bit about October 7th. How does that complicate the situation in terms of the work that you're doing?
That's a really great question, and really real. There's a lot of misinformation about October 7th, and there's a lot of misinformation about what's going on in Gaza. And it's created a lot of division. And so I would say one of the hardest things is navigating those divisions and being the person that's about everybody being in the room together regardless of those divisions, or bringing people together over their divisions or beyond their divisions. So there's a lot of like yesterday I was talking to somebody about something with Gaza, and like it became really clear that we had different information. I was going to say different stances, but the stances are formed by the information we have.
Sure.
And so instead of saying, okay, I can't talk to this person, we obviously feel really differently about this. I said, we were at a party, so it wasn't the best place to talk.
Right.
And I said, we're going to have coffee and we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you everything I know and you're going to tell me everything you know. And we're going to find how we can work together and move forward together.
Okay.
Because I think that's a goal. And it's not just outside of the Jewish community. That happened to be somebody outside of the Jewish community. That was somebody in the Black community. So even in the Jewish community, there are people that lean left and there are people that lean right.
Right.
And, it's really important to say, okay, but here's the things that we can agree on.
Right.
And here are the things that affect both of us, and how are we being the best people we can be, celebrating our culture the best we can. I think that we all want that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, one of the things that I've also seen, so we're starting a student dialogue group here at FIU, and there have been, I think one of the things is that we also assume that people on the other side are all kind of monolithic as well.
Right.
And there's actually a lot of diversity even among people that are different from us, and to be able to engage. And there are people that are open, right? And so you have to figure out who those people are and engage with them. And I think, again, part of the way that you're able to change people's opinions is just engaging with them, talking to them. And I think that's exactly the work that we need to be doing. And it's not just, I think, in terms of interfaith work, but even, we talked earlier about political polarization in the United States as well. That's a really big issue as well. So, what are your politics? And then how do you self-select then? Right. Instead of engaging with the other or with someone who has different sort of perspectives.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, because you said this, I actually want to go back to something that I said, which is I said, in the Jewish community, there's people on the left, there's people on the right. It's not that simple. It's not whatever the two version of monolithic. Right. It's not biolithic.
Right.
I just made up a word. It's not binary. Hello, that's the word. Right. So it's not left and right either. It's like this incredible continuum with people in all different spaces. Right. So, and I think that I hope and I wish that we all remember that it's a continuum and it's not black and white. It's not a binary, and still can come together and move forward with that. And a lot of my work is with people who, in some ways, on the binary, you'd think, oh, that's totally not, that's totally not something that a Jewish person could relate to, or a progressive person. And I have become really good friends with some very conservative people. And it's outside of the Jewish community. And I think that what makes it work is that we have some values that we share, and that's what we can focus on.
Right.
And I think it's okay. It's okay to share some values and to not be like, I don't agree with this person, and therefore I'm not going to engage with them in my life.
Exactly.
Right? I think it's the total opposite. I think it's like what you said. It's engaging, it's coming together, finding your shared values, celebrating your shared values, because then you've completely humanized the quote unquote other side.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's sort of, when you've humanized it, it's less scary. It's like less giant, and maybe from there we can really have conversations that affect change.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And I think one of the other things that's really powerful, not just values, but also sharing your life experiences,
Mm-hmm.
having children or, witnessing your family member die. Or they're very, very profound things that happen in our lives
Yeah.
as humans that can be shared across. And that, it doesn't, you don't need ideology to be able to communicate empathy and sort of love and insideness and those sorts of things. And I think tapping into the emotional connection that we have with each other. So going beyond just the intellectual and like what I believe, but really what I
Right.
feel, I think is a very powerful way
Right.
of being able to do that,
Right. And I think being able to be there for each other through all of those profound
Absolutely.
life events.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're able to really then, those are the friendships that, endure for life then,
Yeah.
If you're with someone when they're at their worst moment, they'll be with you forever, So it's very powerful. So we have a lot of students here at FIU, and they are not sure what they want to do with their life. So what is some wisdom that you can give them based on your life experience, diverse set of life experiences, the communities that you engage with, the work that you do as an artist and as a creative? What would you tell students who are kind of like figuring out what they want to do with their lives?
Wow, that's a huge moment in somebody's life. I would say the most important thing is to love what you do or do what you love. So if there's something that you love doing, figure out how to do that professionally. If it feels like, oh, but that's so easy, I shouldn't be doing that professionally, I need to do something that challenges me or is hard. The truth is that thing that comes easy to you is probably not easy to somebody else. And the fact that it's easy to you is a message that that's what you should be doing.
That's excellent advice. No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
One of the owners of Ben & Jerry's has a quote that's something like, if it's not fun, why do it?
Mm.
And I always think about that.
I mean, you seem to very much enjoy the work that you do.
I do very much enjoy the work that I do, and it gives me energy, which is a really important thing too. It's like you have to be passionate about your work because you need it to fuel you.
Yeah.
You need to like go to bed every night thinking, I can't wait to get back to work tomorrow and dive into this, or make that call even.
Right.
Like, oh, I can't wait to talk to that person,
Right.
or I can't wait to solve this problem, or I think it's really true.
So you talk to a community. What advice would you have, or what is your vision for? I mean, you're kind of the director of community engagement for the Federation. I mean, what would you like to see in terms of community engagement in Miami? Where are we lacking, and what would you like to see more of?
I would like to see more sort of crossing of the aisle.
Okay.
More risk taking in engaging somebody that you think you don't agree with, or you think you are at odds with. I would like to see more. Miami is an incredibly diverse community.
Right.
And I actually think that's really beautiful that that there are differences in communities that have their own cultures, their own communities, their own neighborhoods. And, I think that's great. But I also think that we need to take each other along through it. Right. And I also think that all of our problems will be solved if, oh, sorry, that's my phone. What I think you said earlier, or what we were talking about earlier, which is that when you come together and you find out the things you have in common, you can move forward to accept the things you don't have in common and understand what it's about.
Right.
When you have a place for friendship, you can talk about the hard stuff.
Absolutely. All right, wonderful. Any last message you would like to
Nope.
So, okay. All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jenny, for your time. We're really sort of honored to have you and to
Thank you.
have your story and your work put out there as an inspiration for our students. So thank you.
Great. And I love students.
That's good. I'll have you maybe give a class lecture one day.
I would
too.
love to give a class lecture. When I worked at MDC,
Yeah.
I did it all the time.
Okay, awesome. So that's great. Well, thank you for coming out here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
That's good.
Thank you.
Of course.